Unit of energy, that's right. It's a unit of energy. So definition of a calorie. Yeah, it's the measurement of food in our body, but how do you define a calorie? Unit of energy, that's right. It's a unit of energy. So definition of a calorie, what is a calorie? It is the amount of energy that is required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water to 1 degree Celsius. That's the calorie, the definition of calorie. So the carbohydrates and proteins that are present in the food when we consume will yield 4 kilocalories per gram, whereas the fats, they will yield 9 kilocalories per gram. So the metabolic rate, this is the total rate of body metabolism, which is the amount or rate of oxygen that is consumed by the body in 1 minute. So there's another rate which is known as the basal metabolic rate. So this basal metabolic rate is the metabolic rate. So metabolic rate is the amount of oxygen consumption. And so this metabolic rate, the basal metabolic rate is the metabolic rate of an awake, relaxed person 12 to 14 hours after consuming food and at a comfortable temperature. So the basal metabolic rate varies. It depends on age, it depends on the sex, it depends on body surface area, whether you are lean or obese. It depends on the activity level, whether you're physically active or not, and the levels of the hormones that are secreted by the thyroid gland. So hyperthyroids, those are individuals whose thyroid glands causes over secretion of the thyroid hormones. They will have high basal metabolic rate, whereas individuals whose thyroid under secretes the hormones, then those individuals will have low basal metabolic rate. So metabolism, this is the sum total of all the chemical reactions that happen in our body. So in our body, what are the various chemical reactions that are happening in our body? We went over some of these reactions, the chemical reactions that happen in the beginning of the semester. Cellular respiration is a reaction where energy is produced. Transcription, translation, replication, then or the conversion of extra glucose into fat, which is catabolism. All these are chemical reactions that are happening in our body. So this metabolism includes anabolism, and anabolism are composed of synthesis reactions as well as energy storing reactions. What are the energy synthesizing reactions that take place in our body, where submolecules or structures are produced or synthesized? DNA replication, which gives rise to new DNA, that is a synthesis reaction. Gene expression, where proteins are produced, so those are again synthesis reactions. So you have transcription, which produces the RNA strand from the DNA molecule, and then translation, which then produces the proteins by translating the message that is there in the RNA. So these are synthesis reactions. What about the energy storing reactions? When there's excess glucose in our body, what does glucose get converted to and stored? Excess glucose gets converted to glycogen, and that happens by the process of, what is the process? We went over this, which is glycogenesis. Yeah, that's right. Then extra glucose can also get converted into fatty acids. What is that process? Where glucose gets converted to fatty acids. Extra glucose gets converted to fatty acids. We went over this reaction also. Which is lipogenesis. Remember, lipogenesis producing fatty acids from glucose. So you have glycogenesis and lipogenesis. These are energy storing reactions where energy, excess glucose gets stored as glycogen, or as extra glucose gets converted into fatty acid. So these are all anabolism. And what are the catabolic reactions? So one of the catabolic reaction we just went over, which is cellular respiration, where glucose gets converted into carbon dioxide and water, and in the process produces ATP. Then what are the other catabolic reactions we went over? The reactions where the reaction where amino acid gets converted to ketone, which happens in the liver. Yes, hydrolysis is also a catabolic reaction. So the amino acid gets converted to ketone by the deamination that takes place in the liver, and then the ketones enter the Krebs cycle. So this is again a catabolic reaction. So all these reactions, both the anabolic reactions as well as the catabolic reactions, that make up metabolism. And metabolism is the sum total of all the reactions that happen in our body. So anabolic reactions will synthesize DNA, RNA, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And these reactions have to occur constantly in our body because of the catabolic reactions that are breaking these molecules down by hydrolysis. So you have anabolic reactions synthesizing this constantly in our body to replace molecules that are being hydrolyzed in the catabolic reactions. So you have both these reactions, anabolic reactions as well as catabolic reactions taking place within our body. So the turnover rate of a molecule is the rate at which a molecule is broken down and resynthesized. So here, the average turnover rate for carbohydrates is 250 grams per day. Since some of this glucose is reused, the net need is 150 grams per day. So we need 150 grams per day of carbohydrates. The average turnover rate for protein is 150 grams per day, because some of the protein is some of this is reused for protein synthesis. So the net need is only 35 grams per day. There are 9 essential amino acids. They are known as essential amino acids because our body does not produce or synthesize these. So these amino acids we obtain in our diet. So these 9 amino acids are known as essential amino acids. And these, we do not have genes in our body that will synthesize those amino acids. Those include the lysine, then tryptophan, what else? Histidine, isoleucine, then valine. What are the other ones? Threonine. I can't remember the others. So there are 9 of them, and these are known as essential amino acids because we have to get it from the diet which we consume. So the average turnover rate for fat is 100 grams per day. Little fat is required because excess glucose can get converted as into fat and stored by lipogenesis. So there are 2 essential fatty acids which we need, and these have to be supplied again by the diet. So vitamins, so these are small organic molecules that will act or serve as coenzymes in metabolism. And some of these vitamins have specific functions, so they perform specific functions in our body. So majority of the vitamins our body does not produce. So when we studied about the digestive system, remember the colon has bacterial cells, and these bacterial cells will produce some of the vitamins that get absorbed in the large intestine, such as the biotin, the folic acid, the vitamin B12, then which was vitamin B12, vitamin K. These are produced by the bacterial cells that get absorbed in the large intestine. There are other vitamins which the other vitamins we have to get it through the diet. So these must be obtained in diet because the body does not produce them, or if it does, it produces them in small amounts which are not sufficient. So the vitamins can be classified into 2 types: the fat soluble vitamins and the water soluble vitamins. The fat soluble vitamins include vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K. So these will perform specific functions. The water soluble vitamins include B1, which is thiamine. Then B2 is riboflavin. B3. Oh, B3 is niacin. B6, I don't remember what B6 is. So then you have vitamin B12, then pantothenic acid. So these, the water-soluble vitamins, serve as coenzymes in metabolism of when the they serve as coenzymes in metabolism of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. Minerals, which are also elements. So these are needed as cofactors for specific enzymes and other critical functions. So minerals are needed in large quantities, which include this sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, phosphate, and chlorides. So these minerals are needed in large quantities, but there are other minerals which are needed in very small or minute quantities. And these minerals that are needed in small or minute quantities are known as trace elements. And these include the iron, the zinc, the manganese, the fluorine, copper, molybdenum, chromium, and selenium. So these are all trace elements that are required in minute quantities in our body. So free radicals. So these free radicals are highly reactive molecules, and these can either oxidize or reduce other atoms. What is oxidation and what is reduction? If a molecule oxidizes, what is it doing? So it's losing or removing an electron from the atom. So if it's reducing, then it donates an electron to the other atom. So these are either they are highly reactive because they are composed of an unpaired electron in their outermost shelf. So there are two major types of radicals. These are the reactive oxygen species and reactive nitrogen species. So these will contain an either oxygen oxygen or nitrogen that has unpaired electron. So these contain oxygen or nitrogen that have unpaired electrons. So these, the radicals, then can combine with other atoms. So they would like to either donate this thing or receive it depending on the number of electrons, single electrons that are present on their outermost shelf. So some of these radicals include the nitric oxide radical, the superoxide radical, and the hydroxyl radicals. So these are all different radicals that are produced in our body by many cells. So when the cells are undergoing metabolic processes, then these radicals are produced. So these free radicals serve a number of important physiological functions. So the superoxides and the nitric oxide radicals, they are produced in the neutrophils and macrophages. They are produced by the neutrophils and the macrophages, and these help to destroy bacterial cells. The superoxide radicals can also stimulate cell proliferation of lymphocytes. So lymphocytes, the proliferation of lymphocyte is stimulated by the superoxide radicals. The nitric oxide radicals, this can cause vasodilation of the smooth muscles. So that will increase the flow of blood, and this happens when we talked about vasodilation of blood vessels. When does that happen? When tissue gets injured, remember the blood vessels vasodilate, and then you have more blood flowing through this, so that more nutrients, more oxygen, as well as more of the white blood cells can go into the tissue, injured tissue. But if these free radicals are produced in excess, these can then exert oxidative stress, which can lead to various diseases. So these radicals can damage the lipids, they can damage proteins, they can damage the DNA. They also stimulate apoptosis of cells. Then they are responsible for aging, causing us to age. Many of the inflammatory diseases, such as the rheumatoid arthritis, and what is the other disease? Inflammatory disease, lupus. These are caused by the free radicals. Then they can also cause degenerative diseases. So what are some of the degenerative diseases? Parkinson's disease, that's right, multiple sclerosis, then Alzheimer's, all these are degenerative diseases, and they can also cause malignant cancers within our body. So majority of the time, they find that mitochondria of all the cells that undergo aerobic respiration, they produce the superoxide radicals. And the excess production of the superoxide radicals can then cause this oxidative stress, which leads to various diseases. But in our body, there are mechanisms to protect our body against this oxidative stress. These are enzymatic as well as non-enzymatic means within our body that are present to prevent from this oxidative stress. So enzymes such as superoxide dismutase and catalase, which are present where? What is the organelle that has the superoxide dismutase and catalase? Which no, lysosomes have digestive enzymes. It's actually the perioxysomes that have the superoxide dismutase and catalase. So the superoxide dismutase will detoxify the super oxygen radicals. Catalase, this will remove hydrogen peroxide. So it will convert hydrogen peroxide, which is produced, into oxygen and water. And then you have non-enzymes. So these non-enzymes that are present, such as the glutathione, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, these can combine and react and combine with these free radicals by picking up the unpaired electrons. So these vitamins, the vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, and glutathione, they are known as antioxidants because they will pick up the free radical and combine together. So here this picture is showing you the production of this reactive oxygen species within our body, and then the antioxidant oxidants that are present that will defend it. So here you have the mitochondria, the perioxisome, the NADPH oxidase, and other enzymes. So these are endogenous sources of this reactive oxidative species. Exogenous causes of this reactive oxidative species, which are produced, are the ultra exposure to ultraviolet light, ionizing radiation, some drugs, inflammatory cytokines, and then toxins that are present in environment. So these radicals, the reactive oxygen species, have to be kept in balance with the balance. Otherwise, you have various diseases that can occur. So here you have, if you have excess of this reactive oxygen species, that can cause their cells death, they can cause diseases, they can cause aging in humans. So in our body, we have various mechanisms that will defend it, both the enzymatic as well as non-enzymatic. So you have the enzymes catalase, superoxide dismutase, and glutathione peroxidase. Then you have vitamin A, C, and E, and other antioxidants. So here, inadequate reactive oxygen species. This will impair the immune function, impair cell proliferation, and other responses. So you need some of this reactive oxygen species for various functions, such as the stimulation of the immune cells, etc. So blood plasma will contain this glucose, fatty acids, amino acids, and other molecules. And these can be used as a source of energy by our body tissues, by the cells that are present in our tissues. Then these molecules can be circulating as energy, can be, so these molecules, when we eat the food get digested and the nutrients get absorbed by the blood in the small intestine, and these will then be circulating in the blood. So these are called circulating energy substrates. So they can be stored as energy reserves, which is like glycogen, protein, or fat within our body. So here you can see in this picture molecules at the top over here in the picture are the energy reserves which are stored in the cells. And then in the middle, these are circulating energy substrates that are circulating in the blood. And these can be used as energy reserve by the cellular respiration, by undergoing cellular respiration. The body has both negative feedback loops, which are known as the adipostat, to defend and maintain and certain to in our body we have to maintain a certain amount of adipose tissue, and then the body has this negative feedback loops that act to maintain the a certain amount of adipose tissue within our body. So fats are stored and released by this adipocytes through hormonal control. So, and these will regulate both hunger as well as metabolism. So you need to have certain amount of fat in a body. So here the number of adipose increases greatly after birth due to mitosis and the differentiation of this pre-adipocytes into adipocytes. So the pre-adipocytes get converted into adipocytes. Differentiation is also stimulated by high levels of circulating fats, especially saturated fatty acids. So this requires a receptor which is known as this PPAR gamma receptor. What was this known as? This is perioxisome proliferating proliferator activated receptor of the gamma type. So this nuclear receptor protein is required, and this binds to the prostaglandins or the drugs or any other drugs, and then that promotes the differentiation of this fatty acids. So besides that, the adipocytes, they themselves will secrete regulatory hormones, and these regulatory hormones are called adipokines, where these receptors are activated, where the PPAR gamma receptors get activated, and these will regulate hunger, these will regulate the metabolism and the insulin sensitivity. So this will cause the insulin sensitivity, this will cause muscles to become more responsive to insulin when they cause this insulin sensitivity. These adipokines that are released by the adipocytes include the adiponectin, the leptin, the resistance, the TNF factor alpha, and the retinol binding protein 4. All these are produced by the adipocytes, and these are known as the adipokines. So the adipocyte hormones, which includes this tissue necrosis factor, alpha, resistance, retinol, binding protein 4, and leptin. These, as research has suggested, that they are increased in people who are obese and individuals who have type 2 diabetes. And these four adipokines that are produced by the adipocytes, they appear to reduce the sensitivity of muscles to the hormone insulin, causing insulin resistance in individuals. Leptin, which is also the adipokine, which is produced by the adipocytes, this will signal the hypothalamus, and that it will tell the hypothalamus on how much of fat is stored, and that in turn is regulating the hunger and the food intake. So the leptin hormone will signal the hypothalamus to regulate the hunger and the intake of food. It is also research has also found that adiponectin is decreased in people who are obese and in people who have type 2 diabetes. So this stimulates the adiponectin stimulates glucose utilization and fatty acid oxidation that happens in the muscles. So this adiponectin has this insulin sensitizing anti-diabetic effect on the muscles. Starvation and malnutrition, this diminishes the functioning of the immune system. So low levels of this adipose can cause low secretion of this leptin from this adipocytes, and the helper T cells have these receptors for leptin. So if there are low levels of this leptin that are secreted by this adipocytes, this will diminish the responses that are the immune responses of this helper T lymphocytes, which are the we talked about this the humoral and the cell mediated responses of the T lymphocytes. So evidence also suggests that leptin may be involved in regulating this onset of puberty in females, and also the cessation of this menstrual period, which is known as the amenorrhea in females who are thin and underweight. So this childhood obesity, which is becoming a problem in many of the countries right now, because children hardly go out and and our children are hardly having any physical activities because most of the time they are on their cell phones playing games. So they hardly have any physical activity, and because of that, childhood obesity is increasing. And when children become obese, there's an increase in both the size of the adipocytes and the number of adipocytes that are present in children. But in adults, And obesity is mainly due to the increase in the size of the adipocytes that are present in the body of adults. So here only the size of the existing adipocytes will increase. So when obesity occurs in adults, whereas when obesity occurs in children, that causes an increase in both the size of the adipocytes and the number of adipocytes that are present in the body. So this obesity is diagnosed and measured by using this body mass index. So this body mass index is equal to the weight of the individual in kilograms divided by the height in meters, the square root, the square of the height in meters. So the numbers, if the body mass index is between 19 to 25, this is known as the healthy weight. But if the body mass index is over 25, then those individuals are considered to be overweight. If it's over 30, then that individual is considered to be obese. So here 60% of the population in US is either overweight or obese. So I will stop the lecture over here and we will continue the lecture on Tuesday. Any questions?